Yeah.
Are we recording?
Yeah.
Can we get one of those clappers?
Yep. And action.
Joe, we're here.
We're here.
This is the first episode, the first official recording episode of The Supply Line.
It is.
With Lee and Joe. Or
Super
Joe
exciting.
and Lee. Which
Yes.
one's first? We don't know yet.
It's going to be Joe and Lee, yeah.
Yeah, okay, Joe and Lee. That sounds good, I guess.
Yeah.
So we're talking today to Chris McCall, right? We're
Yep.
going to have him on from Fotokite.
Yes.
What do they do?
Fotokite builds a tethered drone solution, and I'm super excited
Yeah.
to learn about this today because I'm pretty familiar. I've got a consumer drone myself. I kind of like drones.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm less familiar, I feel like.
Well,
so
technology in general, it's
a thing.
It doesn't run on diesel, So, anyways,
Damn
but
it.
I'm excited because
Yeah.
we're going to talk about this thing. I've actually had a chance to see it in real life at a show recently. Have you seen this in real life before?
I have,
thing?
yeah.
Okay.
I saw it at FDIC. I think the year we released it, I
Okay.
was an employee at Pierce.
Okay.
And I was part of the booth there, and I think
That's right. It was on the. Yeah, that's right.
so it was on a Cal Fire truck,
Yeah.
and like a Cal Fire
Yep.
command vehicle,
Yep.
huge thing, like 40-foot RV looking thing.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. And I don't know if it was Chris I talked to, but it was one of their employees from Switzerland, I believe.
Okay.
And so yeah, they had the accent and everything. So I think I'll know when I hear his voice today. But anyway,
well, I mean, I think it'll be cool. So we both got a chance to see it a little bit. Like we just kind of know it's out there, but really don't know much beyond that. So it should be really cool.
Yeah.
But,
so maybe the viewers can. So I think going back to the point of this, just kind of recapping for the viewers. It's just kind of bringing new products to them that maybe they've never heard of, and just letting them hear about it. And we're learning together, obviously.
Yeah, that's really what it is learning together and just trying to explore new topics and stuff. So,
what are you wearing?
I'm wearing this right here. This is my shirt.
And where's
it
Laramie
is
County?
from Laramie County, Wyoming.
Okay.
And actually, this is an old one. They're actually no longer. Is this the old one? Fire Authority. No, this is their new shirt. So they became a fire authority recently. So they absorbed a few fire districts into a fire authority.
What's the connection? Is there a connection?
My uncle is chief out there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So kind of cool.
All right.
And you're wearing the same god awful Orange County.
I think I'm going to wear this at least for a lot of episodes.
Yeah. Well,
So there's obviously where I grew up. I got some pride in it, and it's it's got.
You'll wear it until Kentland releases one, and then we'll be Kentland every time. So
that might be true. Actually,
I think that's pretty spot on.
I can order one custom. I can submit a whole bunch of pictures. They just throw them on there and come up with an Hawaiian shirt. This is going to be cool. You ready? Let's
do it.
Let's get on
Let's
Chris
get with
McCall.
Chris. All right, here we are. So Lee, this is Chris McCall. Chris is the Chief Corporate Development Officer for Fotokite.
Okay.
Chris, why don't you give us a little background on yourself? Tell us a little about kind of how you ended up at Fotokite, where you come from, and give us the spiel.
Yeah. Hey Joe. Hey Lee. Thanks a lot for having me on. So back in 2014, myself, Sergey Lupashin, and Carl Schwab, we jumped in to start a company based off of basically the ability for a tethered drone to fly completely all by itself. And this was new in an emerging drone market to try to figure out what it was good for, what it could serve, and what we ended up figuring out was if you flew a system with what we call an actively tethered approach, you can create a new type of technology that never needs a pilot. It took us some time to ultimately understand what the first responder space needed, what firefighters needed, but once we actually really honed in and focused on kind of that market and our product, we developed the ability for a firefighter to show up to a scene, push a single button, and up on top of their apparatus, this box opens up, a tethered drone flies up, and it starts to stream thermal video and regular video down to all the firefighters on the ground.
Okay.
This type of value is really similar to having a helicopter on site, right, or having drones up in the air. And the firefighting market has started to understand more and more the value of drones in the firefighting space, in the first responder space. we deliver that value without the complication of needing a drone pilot, without the complication of needing to learn how to fly a drone in these complex emerging situations and response scenes. It's as simple as showing up, pushing a button, and you get your data to respond to the fire or respond to the scene.
Very cool.
Gotcha. Now, I'll back up a little bit. So, is it my understanding you guys are based in Sweden, Europe,
Switzerland?
Switzerland.
Yeah, Switzerland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, tell me about. So, where are you based out of, Chris?
So I was also based out of Zurich, Switzerland for about 7.5, 8 years. And these days I'm back in the US. We really focus on North American firefighting and first responder markets.
Okay.
And so I'm here to really try to accelerate things here, and it's going really well. We have
Very nice.
Yeah. And so I'm back in the US. I'm originally from the US, but we also started this company over in Switzerland. And it's something that really leveraged the expertise of autonomous drone engineering, right? And controls engineering that goes into making something fly 100% autonomously.
Okay.
Got it. How long has the company been around? Just out of curiosity.
Since 2014, and
2014.
Okay. And at this point, we still have a majority of our team members in Switzerland, and we also have our U.S. headquarters built up in Boulder, Colorado.
That's what I heard. Okay. Roughly, I mean, just out of curiosity, how big's the team? I mean, how many people are over there? How many people are here? I mean, how big's the team?
Yeah, we're at about 60 people right now, and that's roughly 2/3 Switzerland and 1/3 U.S.
Okay. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Lee, should we go through some questions and ask some stuff? We got all kinds of questions.
Yeah,
here.
we do.
So we're excited to learn all about this. Where do you want to start, Lee? I mean, is there anything that's immediately picked up your brain?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess immediately right off the bat, I have a question. So the power for this drone, it's not battery powered, right? The power goes through the tether?
That's right. Power is going through the tether as well as data, actually.
Okay.
We learned through lots of customer discovery, speaking with firefighters and doing quite a bit of testing, that power and flight time is really important. Obviously, a fire isn't going to wait for you to land your drone and change out batteries, right? You want something that's persistent and up there. Equally important is also the ability to fully depend on your data to be securely delivered and not require RF, not require Wi-Fi, not require radio communications. And so from the camera on the Fotokite, taking the thermal video and taking the regular video, it pipes all of that video down that tether that's also delivering power right into the ground station. So you can have a hardwired video feed from up in the air. And that's a really, really important thing when you have really RF heavy environments. Say you're flying in downtown New York City, for example.
Right. So you think about like downtown environments. You think about industrial sites or commercial sites where you've got. Yeah, that's really something I didn't even think about, to be honest.
Yeah.
So basically, the tethered power allows you to basically have limitless flight, right?
Yeah. We've in fact in testing, the longest we've ever flown for is over a month straight.
Okay.
Really?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
what kind of power does it? I mean, what kind of power does it take to keep this thing up in the air? I mean, can it just run off an apparatus? I mean, an apparatus is capable of keeping this thing supply of power.
Yeah. In fact, that's how they're used quite frequently today, right? And so they're being used across the U.S. They're being used across North America and Europe every single day at this point. And some of those response scenes are hours and hours long. And that's one of the key values it brings.
Okay.
So I did look through your website and saw everything, and it looks like there's really 3 different ways that this can be mounted. It can be mounted on a tray, so like on a fire truck, and maybe on like a slide-out tray, which I think makes a ton of sense, or possibly like in the rear of a vehicle on a slide-out, like let's say a chief's vehicle or something like that, which I probably see it more than anything flying on like a chief's vehicle or a squad or something like that.
Yeah.
Pull it out of the trunk on like a slide-out. Can be mounted on a tray, mounted in just like a kind of a carry box, like a tough box that can be just carried out in the field and set anywhere. Or it can be set up in what looks like some sort of auto deployment box. Talk to us a little bit about kind of the different configurations you've seen it mounted, and where do you see people mounting it? Is it more on apparatus, more in chief's vehicles, more? I mean, give us a little information on that.
Yeah, I think that the newer configuration is actually what's got the most momentum, which is the system that's up on top of the apparatus, and that goes on top of an apparatus. It goes up on top of a battalion chief's vehicle, right, an SUV class vehicle. And the reason why those have picked up so much momentum is because they really are completely hands off, right? You're never holding the drone. You're never putting your hands on even the box that's holding the drone. You show up to your scene, and inside your vehicle you're pushing a button to initialize the flight and the launch. And so it really is just kind of, think of like if you were able to put 150-foot camera mast on the top of your SUV, would you want that capability? The answer is yes, right? It gives you that capability to be able to visualize your scene and make data-based response decisions.
Got it.
Roughly, I'm trying to visualize this on, like, say like an Explorer or a Tahoe or something like that. What's the size of this platform on top of the vehicle? I mean, is it 12 inches,
roughly 2 feet wide and roughly 3 feet long, and so like up on top of the cab of a SUV class vehicle, it's really accommodating.
Okay.
Out of the other configurations, the other one that is quite popular is our transport case version. It's a Fotokite that comes in a Pelican case. The reason why a lot of first responders and departments pick those up is because they can have it in one vehicle one day and have it in a different vehicle another day. And so they have a lot of versatility when it comes to, hey, this week it's going to be in the rescue vehicle and next week it's going to be in the battalion chief's vehicle.
Sure.
So there's a lot more flexibility in that case for those customers.
So do you have has there been a main customer that emerges from this? Like, is it police, fire, EMS type? Like, have you guys noticed like a trend?
Sure. I mean, we focused on the fire market to begin with, and that's certainly where we've got the most momentum, but we've also been able to start delivering quite a bit of systems to public safety and law enforcement departments as well. We actually partner nationwide in the US with Axon. And so Axon, as a technology and a business partner of ours, delivers Fotokites to police departments throughout the US, integrated into their Axon Respond and Evidence.com platforms. And that's a really powerful thing for those departments because it's just one less interface to worry about, to need to train on. It just all meshes together, all works together right out of the box.
Okay.
I'm curious. I talked to a department out in Wyoming, and I said, so I had heard that they had looked into it. In fact, they're looking very actively into it. I would suspect that they'll be a customer at some point, whether it's in the next couple months or the next year or two. They're very, very interested in the technology for a number of reasons, and it was very cool to get to hear kind of their thought process behind it. But I'm just curious, who are, like, categorize who the early adopters are. Is it large city departments? Is it volunteer departments? Is it give me kind of that makeup of who you've seen. Like, it may be surprising. Maybe it's like, holy crap, we didn't expect it, but we got a ton of sales from small rural departments. Who is that adopter?
That's a great question, and honestly, it's across the board. So we have interest from large city departments and customers in large cities. We also have small volunteer fire departments that were some of the earliest to reach out and say, hey, this looks like a great capability. It's going to save us a ton of team resources on the ground, and as a volunteer department, you're maybe even more sensitive to team resources than you would be in a large department. And so we really see value and customer interest from across the entire range. And that's pretty representative in our customer pool as well. I mean, when we're looking at the daily use of these systems, it's really from departments on large city responses and small rural ones.
Okay. Let me ask this before. We got a whole bunch of questions about how this thing flies and all this stuff that's going up there. But let me ask you this before we jump into the actual cool part of like how this thing flies. How is it controlled? So I had a chance to see this. I was out at Ocean City, the Maryland State Fire Chiefs Association's show in Ocean City. I met Vanessa, who's one of their sales reps up there, and she let me play with it. we actually set it up in the back of one of the fire tech vehicles, and we had it flying out the back of one of the
Yeah.
compartments. So there was an iPad type device, some sort of tablet that was like controlling it. How is it controlled? Is that how it's controlled? Is that what's inside of a vehicle? Would it say there's an auto deploy setup with it? Is it that controls it?
Yeah, so
You explain
exactly
that?
what you said. Every Fotokite comes with a rugged tablet with the Fotokite software already pre-installed, and so
Okay.
most typically that tablet is on a vehicle dock right there at the dashboard of the vehicle, so that when the customer shows up, they just push that button and the system up on top starts opening up. Of course, also with the Pelican case version, that tablet's right there and capable of giving command and control to the Fotokite that's just a few feet away. It's done over either a hardwired Ethernet connection, especially in the vehicle integration, or over a Wi-Fi connection, and that's 2.4 or 5.0 gigahertz.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what we had seen out there. It was not connected to it. So that is the way you control. There's not there. That's the only control method is through the tablet.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And what we also enable, every single one of our systems, it has a built-in modem with cellular connectivity, and so we're capable of sending out the live video stream from each device to nearby firefighters, to maybe a hazmat specialist on the other side of the country, and they can look at.
Yeah, I was curious about exporting that video footage to say a command vehicle.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we do, so a little background on us, but we both came from OEM spaces. We both were working on large vehicles in that type of, especially rescue vehicles like that. So,
Nice.
Right.
so you can export footage off to say that command vehicle
Because at the end of the day, it's not just about what the firefighter themselves are seeing. It's how they can communicate that, how they can relay that information, especially back to a command center on larger response types. And so really in the same ethos that we've created for a single button launch and landing, it's also you push a single button and all of a sudden you're live streaming to everybody that has the credentials to that video live stream, and so you really can share it across the scene and back to the station.
Okay, that brings up one other question, and then we'll get into flight stuff. I promise. I just want to know: is this footage recorded? Is this footage saved? Is it saved locally? Is it saved on? There's so much stuff going on with the DJI stuff, and I'm sure you're very aware of that conversation. And we don't need to get into that too far, but I just want to know. I think a lot of listeners are going to be curious.
Yeah.
Is it saved? Is it locally saved? Is this connected to the
cloud,
and all this stuff? I mean, what do we have from Big Brother?
Really important question, and we really take that to heart, especially as a American and Swiss company, right?
Yeah.
We know that information is extremely sensitive to our customers, and we have them save their data 100% locally. All of their footage is saved right there on device, on premises, and nowhere else.
Okay.
Right? So it's not shared, it's not shareable. You can send the live stream if you on site elect to do that.
Local devices.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's never stored by default anywhere else.
Is it stored on like a memory card that you can? What's the storage?
It's a solid state drive built right into the ground
right
station
into
of the
that platform.
Fotokite. Yeah, and so at the end of your response, if you need that video for evidence purposes or for training purposes, this system's used for training all the time. You're able to offload those videos right onto your tablet and share that within your team.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right.
So, flight questions. I have a few. So, the first time I experienced your product actually was on I believe it was a Pierce Frontline Communications truck at FDIC for CAL FIRE. And I think you might have even been the guy that was there showing me it. I think. I don't remember exactly, but basically, when I think about like CAL FIRE and thinking about like the winds over there and everything, how does it do in wind?
Yeah. I mean, that's a core capability that any aerial device needs for firefighting, especially wildfire, right? So what we do is we approach the problem from the perspective of the system needs to fly itself no matter what conditions it's in, and it needs to determine by itself whether it's safe to fly or not, right? That's something that typically a drone pilot needs to make the judgment call. Is it safe to fly or not? The way that we approach it, because we try to make everything as user-friendly and autonomous as possible, is we always program the Fotokite to maintain its station right above its ground station, right? So it's hovering directly above it at all times. Obviously, wind and high winds from a wildfire are going to try to push it off of station, and we actively monitor that. We've designed the system so that it is very, very strong at staying in one spot, even through really high winds. And we also build in an automatic detection capability so that if the system is getting pushed off of its station too much, it will automatically reduce its altitude a little bit, because typically the lower you go, the lower the winds are. And so it'll reduce its altitude a little bit, maintain flying, and maintain station. And so we've seen customers using these in winds upwards of 40, 45 miles per hour that we can measure on the ground. Up in the air, it's really tough to measure what's going on. But it really go ahead.
Sorry, one thing that caught my eye, because it was a super windy day in Ocean City. Well, one of the days we were there was super windy, right on the beach in Ocean City, Maryland, for the show we were at a few weeks ago. And the Fotokite was up, and it was up way up. I mean, 100, so I think it was pretty much at 150 feet. But what blew my mind is the amount of flex in that wire as it went up. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect the wire to do as much of a flex as it did. So my question is, I mean, I saw pretty good deflection. I mean, just the wire catching wind, right? So how is it? Is there really truly only 150 feet of cable in that thing, or is there more than 150 feet of cable in it, and it maintains 150 feet off the ground? Or talk to me a little bit about like what I'm seeing there.
Yeah, we physically limit it to 150 feet of cable that is possible to pay out, and you're right, there's quite a bit of deflection, and it's a really visual sign of how strong are the winds up there throughout that vertical column, right? It's not something that you always appreciate when you just look up into the sky, and especially when you just look up and you see a regular traditional free-flying drone. You don't really understand what's going on up there.
So you said it holds its location over the base, right? Is that done through like sensitive GPS, or I don't know if you can speak to it, but how does it know if it's starting to blow away from base?
That station keeping and that autonomous controls is actually what our company is built off of, is the ability to sense where you are using a tether, actively using a tether, and maintaining your position. We can use GPS, and we do when it's really good. We can use a number of different sensors that we fuse together, and we do when those sensors are giving good solid values. The result of that is something that's highly dependable, even when there's no GPS. Even if you're in a urban environment where GPS signal is pretty spotty, right? In regular free-flying drones, you get flyaways, right? Because GPS drops out. Our system is flyaway proof, right? It really is captive, it flies itself, and it doesn't require GPS.
Interesting.
What back to the weather stuff again? We're talking flight stuff here. So the temperatures listed on your website, and correct me if I'm wrong, so I very well might be. I believe it's 20 degrees Fahrenheit to 110, 104 degrees. What's the temperature range there? For the Fotokite.
Yeah, you were spot on with that, and that's really operating temperature. Of course, we've seen customers operate our systems in well above 104, especially out in some of those desert areas. The real success that our customers have had is when they're bringing the vehicle out from a garage or bringing it out from their vehicle, putting it down and launching it in the air. Any drone system, and heck, any electronics, if you really talk about it like a laptop, if you put it out on an 120 degree day on black asphalt, you sit it there for a few hours, and then you try to turn it on in the sun, it's going to have a pretty hard time. But our systems have been operated in a number of I'd say Wisconsin winters and Florida summers for the last several years, really on a daily basis. So they've really been field proven.
Speaking of that, can it operate in like smoke conditions? Like,
Oh yeah.
have you guys had, okay, so you've had like customers, have blow up, from
Yeah.
a fire or smoke.
Yeah, yeah, and in fact, the really powerful thing there is, I mean, everybody knows that thermal cameras penetrate smoke.
Yeah.
When you're up, and even if you're in the middle of a smoke column, your thermal is picture perfect. Like you're really seeing everything that you need to at that point.
I know this is an extreme case, but I know one of the questions I had was, what happens if the tether is cut? So can the Fotokite land itself without a tether?
Yeah, funny that you asked, because that's one of the more frequent questions we get.
Yeah.
And also it's the least frequent thing that's ever happened, right? So
and I imagine it would be, it's, that would be.
No. The difference between the two data sets is interesting. So what we have designed and implemented is the ability for the kite to detect if a tether is cut or separated within about half of a foot, and it hovers and then slowly descends back down to the ground station.
That's great. Okay.
That's
the testing of that was actually pretty fun, but in the real world, we've actually never I've never really seen it happen.
Okay.
Let me ask this. I'm just curious, architecturally wise. I got two questions. The architecture of the actual. Do you guys have a name? Do you guys call the actual drone itself? Do you have a name for that internally, or you guys call it anything different than just Fotokite?
We call it the kite and the ground station. So when we're talking about the two different systems, or actually I should say three, because we refer to the tether also.
Sure.
But yeah, we really do. We've designed and built something that operates very differently from a traditional piloted drone. And so, like, as a way of recognizing that also internally, we call it the kite is up in the air, the ground station's down below, and the tether's in between.
So speaking of the kite, then it's got 6 props on it, which is kind of different. I mean, I think a lot of us are so used to the consumer drones now, and even other commercial drones that run on pretty typical 4-prop setup. Why 6? Why rectangular? Why not 4? Tell me about that.
Safety and redundancy, right? If you're building a system for first responders, man, if you don't have safety first, then you've got the wrong priorities. So we build redundancy into the power systems. We build redundancy into the data systems. We build redundancy into the propulsion systems, and that's exactly why we've built 6 rotors. And in fact, we've even designed the airframe so that it's optimized again for station keeping, right? A normal drone will be built to optimize for movement through the horizontal air column or through the 3-dimensional air column. We really focus on being that stable, safe, autonomous platform that's right above where you're launching it from. So we build in 6 so that in the case that ever a rotor fails, let's say you get a bird strike and a propeller breaks, the other 5 kick into a backup mode and maintain flight, and again automatically start slowly descending back to the ground station. There's even some cases, it depends on which 2 fail. If you ever had 2 rotors fail, it's possible to maintain flight there as well. At the end of the day, what we're trying to create for the customers is just total confidence that this system is safe. It's always going to fly when it's safe to do, and it's going to land itself if it's ever not safe to be flying.
Out of curiosity, has there ever been like a bird strike?
No.
I didn't think so, but I didn't know.
We've seen some birds check it out before, but no, we've never had a recorded bird strike. Nothing reported from customers. So right now, it's just a safety feature built in case and if it ever becomes necessary.
Okay. I guess my kind of last question in terms of flight wise is flight restrictions. I know as a consumer drone owner myself, I know that I am restricted in a lot of areas I'll go into, and it's like can't fly here. I got a ceiling of 100 feet or 200 feet or 300 feet. Is there any flight restriction issues with the tethered drone? Does it change at all as tethered? I mean, if you're in sensitive areas with it, is it even care? As a first responder, can I just fly it? Is there even software that's going to stop it from doing that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and that's actually something like flight regulations is something that first responders have been needing to deal with for quite some time, right? we worked directly with the FAA, and legislators decided at the end of the day, back in 2018, to classify actively tethered systems as a new type of unmanned aerial system, not a typical free-flying drone. And what they said in the FAA reauthorization of 2018 is that Fotokites or actively tethered systems can be flown by public safety teams, professional firefighters, and public safety departments without the need for a Part 107 license and without the need for a COA, Certificate of Authorization. That really distinguishes a system like the Fotokite from a system that is a traditional free-flying piloted drone, in that firefighter can now, every day since that bill passed through today, can show up to that scene, and provided they're in the right airspace, they can push that button and get the information without needing to be that trained pilot. We know that less than 1% of all first responders are trained drone pilots.
Right.
And so what we deliver is a system that 100% of first responders can actually utilize out in the field. And
that really is
interesting.
It really is
Yeah, and valuable.
Yeah. Any other type questions?
No, I don't believe so.
I got all kinds of questions here then, in terms of just other things that popped into my head as we were looking through all this stuff. Yeah. What I want to know a couple of things I want to know a lot about is reoccurring, like, maintenance costs, annual costs. Do you guys have anything that you guys require from the day it's delivered on? Is there anything that's Fotokite has to come in and certify this thing once a year? What do we not know? What do we not know right now about annual cost and maintenance and that type of stuff? What do we need to know?
Well, in terms of requiring, no, we don't require the customer to do anything, right? If they're perfectly comfortable having their system out there for years and they maintain it, then great. We certainly offer extended warranties up to about 5 years. We expect the life cycle of a product to be about 5 years long. And we offer optional services like that remote video streaming that we were talking about a little bit earlier. But I think that the first responder space, they've been burned a little bit. They're really sensitive to recurring costs and companies trying to hook them with a product that they then have to pay, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year just to use. We take a really different approach. We understand that the value is in the data that they get, and if there's things that they want to opt for, if there's services that they want from us to improve the experience, or continue to provide things like remote video streaming and other expanded integrations, then they opt for those. But no, we never require a customer to do anything.
Is there preventative maintenance that would be done yearly on this, or is there any oil, bearings, grease bearings, anything like that?
No, everything's really built for pretty rugged environments, and they do well. Obviously, we train customers to inspect their systems. At the end of the day, it is a flight system, and you need to be careful with it. So we tell them, hey, take a look at the propellers. Every X amount of flight hours. Inspect your tether cable, make sure that there's no nicks or dings on it based off of the last few hundred hours of use. But overall, the system is very, very robust. It's pretty atypical that we ever end up getting any kind of mechanical related failures out there.
Okay. To recap, so you said, I think you mentioned there's a 5-year optional warranty. Is there a standard warranty on this? And what
standard year. Yeah, standard warranty is pretty standard, right? Parts, labor, manufacturing, for 1 year or 200 flight hours. And so that's what it comes with standard. Some customers are perfectly good with that. Others opt for the 5-year. Okay.
Sounds like, talking to a couple of the departments looking at this product, they're pretty interested because they heard that there's a new cameras are coming on it now or something like that. Mm-hmm. So they said the flare that's on it now, or was on it, was okay, but they said the new one's on there now. What's going on with the actual hardware?
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement about our latest camera release, and what it includes is, on the thermal side, radiometric improvement. So now you can actually sense true temperatures within 5% accuracy. On the EO camera, the regular RGB, we've improved our zoom tremendously. So if you're trying to really hone in on an area of your response scene, we've improved the capability to do that really tremendously. Before we only had digital zoom. Now we have a blended optical plus digital zoom to go from 0.5 all the way into 16x. And so with a 32x zoom range, it's really, I think customers love it. The ones that have seen it, the ones that now have it in their hands with the newest deliveries are really excited about it.
And as stuff like that comes out, I mean, is it retrofittable? I mean, is this some of the stuff like, can you get that?
Yeah, we make it 100% retrofittable.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. I like that kind of future proofing a little bit as much as they can. I mean, the software side is endlessly retrofittable, but they support that, and there's no cost to the support on the software side to get the latest stuff. That's really cool.
Is there a weight limitation on this, out of curiosity?
Like payload?
Definitely. I mean, we build the size of our system to optimize for the camera that you need to carry for first responder uses, and so it's limited to what we develop for it. But we're always striving to put the best optics on there, and so we're already working on the next versions.
Okay.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. I mean, that covers my question.
Okay, you got one more.
Yeah,
got one more.
He's got one more.
I got one more.
Shoot.
Collision avoidance. Is there any collision avoidance on this? I would imagine it doesn't really need it, but I'm thinking about like if I'm using it in certain environments where I may have a bridge deck above me, I may have aerial devices around me. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that's going to stop me from going up into something that's above me?
So just like the cameras, we've designed the system with future proofing in mind for collision avoidance and object detection. Right now, the system doesn't have that. What we train customers on is the exact same principle that they learn when they're operating, let's say, a fire ladder, which is the look up and live principle.
Look for lines,
right?
Look for lines,
So look the lines, look up, see if you have a tree branch above you, look up to see if you've got a bridge above you, and make sure that you're not about to launch up into something. Just that very simple training approach has been really positive. We've gotten really strong customer response from that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Joe, Lee, this has been awesome. I really appreciate the time with you. Would be happy to keep the conversation going anytime.
Yeah. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And people can find you guys at fotokite.com. Is that the website?
That's right.
Okay. Great.
Cool. Nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
thanks,
likewise.
Chris.
Yeah, appreciate the time. Cheers.
Take care. Bye-bye.
So we just got done with Fotokite, right?
Yeah.
So we got done with Chris.
Yes.
And I found a lot of that very interesting because I'm not a techie guy, as most people know, right? So immediately my choice in these interviews is to go right in and say, how tough is it? All this stuff. And I was fascinated by that part of it.
Yeah.
And what I was also fascinated about was the fact that you are interested in all these questions that I wouldn't have even thought of. Like, can they save the data? Does it go up to a cloud? Is it like Google where they can track you forever in your police department and how many people you've arrested and can they sue you for it?
Right.
All that stuff.
Right.
And I thought that was fascinating as hell.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, let's talk a little about the redundancy stuff because I think I saw you light up. You're like, redundancy, and it's just like, Lee's
like
listening now.
How tough is it to be in these bad situations?
And I thought it was interesting. I mean, the one thing that caught me by surprise right off the bat was I knew it had 6 propellers. I'd seen it before, and it was like it's shaped like a piece of paper. I mean, like it looks like 11 by 8 paper. It's weird. It doesn't look like a normal drone.
Yeah.
And so that was always odd to me. And so when you explain, though, that the 6 props are really there because of redundancy, I mean, it goes back to everything that we do here at work.
Right.
It goes back to everything we did at, Rosenbauer and Pierce. I mean, it's all about redundancy, make sure there was always a backup to a backup. And the battery backup was huge, too. I didn't realize it had a battery on board the actual device there. So if that wire gets cut, I mean, it's coming down and it's going to land safely.
That was something that I was actually surprised about because I thought a tethered drone has to be tethered all the time.
But then the other thing is, the focus on stability. I mean, beyond that, he's got a point, right? They're not making a drone that's going to have to move and go 40 miles an hour.
See,
other drones out there are chasing cars and they're running,
I didn't know that, right? I didn't know that it. So when they talk about autonomous flight, which is something that we had discussed before this podcast, we didn't know what that meant. And
Right.
now I truly understand that when they say it's autonomous, that you press a button, it goes up by itself.
Yep.
And I assume you control the camera, right? I guess we didn't talk
Yeah,
about that.
there is camera control on the screen.
But it goes up and it stays right above its base.
Right.
So it's not a flying drone. It's not, different things. It would go up above a command vehicle at a fire scene,
Right.
Let's say. And,
Also, the other thing that was very impressive to hear about was the weather abilities of this thing.
No, I mean, it can hold up.
know.
It sounds like it can hold up to weather.
Right.
It can hold up to smoke.
Rain, sleet, snow.
Right. And when you're in a wildfire situation, right, and I keep going back to the
Yeah.
wildfire thing because when I first experienced Fotokite,
Yeah.
it was on a CAL FIRE command truck. It was
Right.
this huge RV
Right.
thing. But when you're in a wildfire situation, there is a lot of, weather pattern changes, whether it's, wind, whether it's fire, you have updrafts, downdrafts, all this stuff. And the fact that it can stay where it's at without GPS,
Right.
which is what I kind of like about it.
Right.
It's got a, and he didn't exactly say this, but when I learned about it at the trade show, it has the tether, and it has a sensor all the way around it at the bottom of the drone. And when the tether touches,
that's how it's doing it.
That's how it's tracking itself.
Yeah, it's literally using the tether, and then there's basically like gates around the tether that as it hits a gate, it then corrects, and so it's using the tether to actually guide us, which is I think is pretty interesting. But one of the things I felt like I didn't get enough on, I wish I maybe would have gotten more information on, and I don't think there would have been a good answer for it. I just can't imagine, but there would be. But I mean, heat resistance to it. I mean, if this thing's in an environment, just like on the bottom of an aerial bucket, right?
Yeah.
We put some sheeting down there.
Yeah.
And the old ones we used to put like literally like fabric sheeting that was metallic reflective to reflect heat off it. But that wire, it's super thin. I mean, it's like super super thin. I mean, it's not even as thick as a shoestring. I mean,
you
it's
have data.
Really thin.
We talked about it. We have data going
and
through
power.
that and power. So power in the ground.
So I don't know. That's one thing I'm still questioning about it. Is it heat resistance wise?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be careful with this thing. I mean, you can't get it like an aerial. You can get up there and it's got a shower underneath it, and we can do some stuff that.
So I believe it was the city of Orlando or Orange County, one of the places down there where I'm from.
Yeah.
They had a fire the other day. The drone guy was in the area and he came over.
Yeah.
And they went up there and they were far away from the fire. Right?
Yeah.
So they were tracking the guys. Right. They were using the FLIR camera, so the infrared, and they were tracking the guys walking through the place. They had hot spots on one side of the building. They couldn't even see it. Right. But there were still hot spots, and you could see that in the camera. So they used it purely for a command situation. There was no interface with the smoke or the fire, and it just wasn't a concern. And I'm wondering how often heat would be a problem at a fire scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's
Especially,
right above the base, right,
and
the base is hot,
right,
which means your command truck, let's say,
right,
is hot,
right,
and it's in the fire, then you're destroying everything. Anyway.
But even if the ground level, right, you put it up and the wind's going north, right, and then you're parked to the south of it, and then the wind shifts at some point during that fire event, and you're south of it, it may still be cool down at the ground, but as that column of smoke and heat rises,
you're right.
It might be blowing over to that drone. Right. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how hot it is 300 feet up, 400 feet from a fire. I don't know what that smoke comes from, but I'm just I mean that's. And obviously, if you're operating it right, you've got a very expensive piece of equipment there. You're gonna keep somewhat of an eye on it, right? But I mean, just thinking about it's gonna quickly meld into the background of the scene. You're gonna have a ton of other things to worry about other than the drone. So it was interesting. It's obviously still a lot less to worry about than a free moving drone, a drone that's needs an operator and needs all this attention and stuff like that. And that's what I like about it, though. I like that it frees up that command person or that firefighter to go do another job on the fireground versus having to give a dedicated body to manning this system. So it's just giving a tool.
But not only that, he can, like in my mind, you have a command truck, you have your pull-out in the back, you have a screen there, right? And anytime the command guy, the chief or the the district chief, whatever, wants to come over to the TV and see what his guys are doing, where they're at, if they're making progress, I think it's super cool. And there's it's a cheap replacement to a helicopter.
It's something between to me. It brought back when I was at Rosemar, we built 10 trucks, identical trucks for the state of Minnesota. They were basically large incident response vehicles. They stationed. The state gave them to, or there's some sort of mutual funding thing happening between the major cities in Minnesota, and they would house them at their stations. They could use them for personal runs around town there, and then also use them for they would get deployed out to like statewide incidents. But we had these 60-foot camera masts on them,
right,
with the FLIR up there
yep.
and an optical camera, a normal camera up there.
Yep.
And it's actually funny because we had just finished like number 5 or 6. I think it was actually the city of Duluth, Minnesota's one that we had finished. And the crew that was building the truck that day, they had to do some maintenance on it inside. They had the mast up, and they pulled into one of the bay doors.
Exact same thing happened when I was at Pierce.
Yeah, tore the mast right off it,
yep.
which, you know, A, that's like a $60,000 oops.
Right.
And then B, it's now, you know, how long did parts take? I think it was it was like 6 months they didn't have the mast on there. So it really is a replacement almost for that.
Yeah, it's for a camera mast. It's for a helicopter, you know, surveillance.
And you could never
type.
put a camera mast on a Chief's vehicle or, you know, like a Tahoe or an Explorer. There's just no way. But also, this camera mast is mobile. You can take it and set it up. And I guess that's one of the other things I think maybe, you know, I'd like to know some more about is that Pelican case solution where they have it in a Pelican case and it's mobile, you know, and I look at like, because one of the things is you may have a larger incident where you may want to move that physically around the thing. I'd like to know more about, like, do I have to land it and then pick it up and move it, or
if you can just
pick
it up
the base and it'll just kind of follow you
like
around.
a kite.
Yeah, because if you got a cord on there, a cord off a cord reel from a truck, and you can just pull the thing around.
Yeah,
you know, it gives you some options and some flexibility to move it closer or further from an incident, or
to the
left
back
or
of the
right,
building,
back
to the front of the building, if you're talking about a house fire.
Because that is one of the things. I mean, 150 feet may seem like a lot, but if you're 400 or 500 feet back, or you're in a setback from a street, and that's where that closest vehicle is.
Yep.
Let's say it's hard mounted to the top of a truck. That truck may be a couple hundred feet back from the scene. 150 feet up, you still are going to have blocked a view behind that structure, even on a single-story family home. I mean,
so if you were a chief, do you? So 3 options I heard for mounting this. Right, you have the Pelican box, which is portable. You have a chief vehicle one that's like a pod on the top of a chief vehicle that opens up.
It goes on a chief's vehicle or a fire truck or anything. Yep, but the pod box.
And then the third way I've seen it done on a Pierce truck is, I think it was
out.
local to Pierce, actually.
Yep.
The factory up in Appleton. It's a pull-out tray, and it just takes off from the compartment in the fire truck. If you're a chief, do you have any thoughts on all those options and which one you like?
The problem I have with roof mounting it is that it's now dedicated to a piece of equipment.
Yep.
And I guess same could be said for mounting it to a compartment. It's dedicated to a piece of equipment. If that equipment is out of service or it's not on that scene or it's tied up in another incident, you don't have that asset. And I think that's probably my bigger concern there. And then the Pelican case, though, it requires a lot of manual labor to get it set up. Right. So the trick is I think a lot of chiefs like it because they can hop on scene, press one button. They're going to stay. I mean, I don't know. At least for the department I was with back in Minnesota, we would, chief would stay in his vehicle and basically isolate himself and operate instant command from there.
Yep.
Manning microphones, manning radios, and manning all of the information coming in, right? And so that would be helpful for him is with one button up and forget about it.
Right.
If you have to do anything physically with it, you've now dedicated somebody in that critical first few minutes of an incident to trying to figure out to get this thing up in the air and
to get it in the right spot, all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So every one of them has definitely an advantage and disadvantage.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, if you were looking at the system for your department, let's say you make up some department.
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends on the size, right? I grew up in Orlando. I was an explorer for years.
Yeah.
I saw, a few fires, right?
Yep.
And the chief always stayed around his truck, right? He always had the pull out in the back. So
now, let me ask this. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but is there in Orlando today, a larger city department, is there a dedicated drone unit in that department yet?
I think there is. There isn't random drones across the department. That much I know.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's a drone unit or if it was an external company. I remember seeing the footage of it.
Yeah.
It was a fire over there, kind of on the west side, Central West, and I don't know. I'd have to go look, but
because I'd be curious, because in that case, right?
Yeah.
Here's the business, or here's the use case for say like a larger city department in my eyes. Yeah. And I'm not a large city. I've never been a large city firefighter.
Yeah.
But I just just talking through this though, the way I could see it being used is let's say you have a unit or a division of aerial division, right? Yeah. That division has say a squad, right? Like a Explorer or a Tahoe that they send out to incidents when called for by command. Yeah. That would make awesome sense. Maybe they are employing the use of both like a more traditional drone and a tethered drone. And that tethered drone is mounted permanently to top of that, and that's a that unit then has those. capabilities in CAD, so it calls for that. It sends that unit.
I know that's fairly a new thing for the FDNY, right? New York City Fire Department does have a drone unit.
They have a drone unit.
Yep.
Okay.
But the city of Orlando, I'd have to go back and look, and I'd be interested in knowing. But in my mind, going back to it, if like I was a chief, let's say.
Yeah.
Obviously not a ton of experience, but with the experience I do have, I see a fire truck mounted system being a no-go, just because that truck is a primary. Well, I guess it depends on the size of the department, right?
Right.
So
It's
if you're
all
a
the
middle
use
of
case,
nowhere
but-
department, like Mills River, right? I volunteer at Mills River. We go out to the fire, right? And the first pumper is there for a while, 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes, whatever, until it has backup trucks, right?
Right.
And so, maybe taking up a drone from that truck might be a good thing, right? If that's a command truck. But usually the departments I have the most experience with, Orlando, Orange County, the departments I've seen operate, operate from a chief vehicle. And I think the chief mounted truck is probably a cool option in my head. Maybe the portable one. I'd want to know how the portable one's powered.
I think if you hand it over to the crews and put it on a fire truck, you definitely have to do a lot of kind of rethinking of your SOPs and SOGs and thinking about who's response. Is it the engineer to go? They hop out to run the pumps and everything. I mean, whose job on the fire ground is it then to man to get this thing in the air?
And the other interesting thing about that is it puts, if it's on the first two pumper, right? Yeah. It puts the drone very near to the fire ground. Whereas if it's a chief vehicle, it might be set back a block or so, a half a block, whatever.
See, I was thinking the same thing, but then a chief vehicle, I mean, I've seen many times chiefs, they'll pull up, they'll go right in the backyard of their vehicle. They'll just drive between houses and stuff. I mean, because they have that ability to do so, so there could almost be, you can make an argument either way. I think it's so situational. I mean, we may never come to a
I guess I like the three options because it gives, small
really
departments in the middle of Iowa something.
Yep.
It gives huge fire departments like New York City an option. And it gives everything in between, basically.
I think they nailed the packaging of it. I really do. I mean, I think that's brilliant.
Cool.
The battery backup's brilliant, right? I mean, they know that these trucks, somebody could kick a wire. I mean, like you said, somebody could kick a wire and all of a sudden we're MIA. So I think they've thought through the North American Fire Service pretty darn well with this tool. I really do. And, the other thing that was really interesting to me, I was kind of worried about was like warranties, maintenance costs, that type of stuff. And I've had my hands on the product before, and I did feel like it was pretty bulletproof. It's built super solid. I mean, this thing is like tough. It's been a tough box, all that stuff. But to hear that it comes with a year warranty, that's great. Especially as you're getting it set up, trying to figure out how you're going to use it.
And that's a year standard, right? So
year standard,
or
and then 200 flight hours, or optional 5 year.
Up to 5 year.
So for me, that year warranty is great, right? It helps you get it in service, helps you figure out how you're going to use it, and learn what you need to learn with it before you're kind of out on your own, and also get through any sort of issues you may have hardware wise if there's something issue that manufacturing. And the only thing is, obviously, the whole entire thing has got to be proprietary parts. I mean, nothing on that's probably stock. Maybe the propeller blades are stock blades, but that airframe, everything else, that's their thing. So you are kind of stuck buying from them. But I don't know a ton about drones, but it sure seems that way. I mean, I've got a consumer drone myself. I'm stuck buying from DJI, who I bought my drone from. The magic to this whole thing is, and I've done a little bit of looking at the price of these things. I've been able to talk to a few people who shopped around for some stuff, and my understanding is that it is more expensive than a traditional drone for the tethered option. But you look at the capabilities it gives you as a department, both in ease of use. You're not dedicating a person to it. There is no license required, and that is the biggest thing, right? I mean, every department would love the capability of this, right? I mean, nobody's gonna be like, we would never ever want.
You're
this,
gaining eyes above
you're gaining eyes, right?
You never had before.
I don't think anybody. I can't imagine anybody's like, this is the worst thing ever, right? I can't imagine that. But I can imagine all the arguments against it are like manpower. It's not a priority. We got, all these other things, right? And Big Brother and all this data sharing. I mean, those are the things that I think people are probably more worried about. So the fact that there's no license required, that is the gateway to it. I mean, he said it. Every single firefighter in the U.S. today can walk out and use this drone.
And I think that's the cool part about it. That's the big marketing point of this, is that you're gaining eyes that you didn't have before, and anybody can use it. It's that simple. This was awesome.
This was good.
First actual episode.
Yeah.
This was it went good. I thought.
So.
Well, Joe, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for being my co-host.
I will see you
of the supply line,
and all of you
Yes.
On the next one.
I don't know what camera I'm looking at.
I don't know either.
Signing off. Hey, that was fun.
You know we love a good debate. Find us on social media at the Supply Line Podcast on all platforms, and let us know whose side you are on in the comments.
And don't forget, leave us a 5-star rating. If you don't, well, that will hurt our feelings a little bit, but we'll pick up the broken pieces.